Hey there, I'm J. Christian Adams. I'm president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation. You're listening to Protecting Your Vote, the podcast. And the Public Interest Legal Foundation is the nation's only public interest law firm dedicated exclusively to election integrity. We litigate, we research, we advocate for election integrity. And one of the things you will remember in this last election is all the people who said there's nothing to worry about here. Move along, avert your eyes, don't ask questions, go to jail. And so we had a situation where the country, or at least half the country, didn't want to talk about demonstrable, real vulnerabilities in the system. And this goes back a long time. Since I was at the United States Department of Justice, there's always been a vote denial crowd, people who want to deny that voter fraud occurs, people who want to pretend there are no vulnerabilities in our system. I call them vote fraud deniers because that's what they do. And many of them make a lot of money being vote fraud deniers. Media, people at publications like TPM Muckraker, ProPublica, The Nation, Mother Jones, people who sell books like Ari Berman. These are vote fraud deniers. They write for big left-wing publications that couldn't support themselves without philanthropic support. And that's why they get donations to fund their vote fraud denial. But what I thought we would do today is take a journey through some experiences that we have at the Public Interest Legal Foundation about real vulnerabilities in our system. Got a whole lot of stories. We won't have time today to cover all of them for sure, but I just want to give you a sense of it. So next time somebody says to you, there's nothing wrong with the system, I can tell you that's not true. The first stop along the way is Swissvale, Pennsylvania, a town right outside of Pittsburgh. And we found an individual there named Rashawn Slade who was registered to vote in 2016, not 2 times, not 3 times, not even 4 times. Rashawn Slade of Swissvale, PA had 7 active registrations on the voter rolls in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. Now, we learned this because we sued Allegheny County, Pennsylvania under the motor voter roll as PILF Public Interest Legal Foundation versus Allegheny County, and we found Rashawn Slade was registered to vote 7 times. We found a whole lot of other people registered to vote multiple times in Allegheny County. And so folks who tell you that this doesn't happen aren't telling the truth. What happens in a state where there's automatic vote by mail, where people like Rashawn Slade get ballots sent to them not once, not twice, not 3, but 7 different times. And when you combine dirty voter rolls with multiple registrations, you get a problem. And let's go to Nevada. If you want to talk about problems, look at Nevada in the 2020 election. You can find at the Public Interest Legal Foundation a video that we did where we went to visit people who were registered at commercial addresses. What do I mean by that? Liquor stores, casinos, gas stations, pot shops, I guess pipe shops, but same idea. Abandoned mines, post offices, vacant lots. You can find this video at Public Interest Legal Foundation if you look at Google PILF Nevada Mail. And what you see in this video are places where the voters don't live anymore. There was a voter who was supposed to be living in an abandoned mine, and we went and we looked for the voter, they don't exist. So, okay, that's bad enough. But what happens when you combine that with mail balloting? When you combine that with mail balloting, bad things happen because mail ballots get sent to places where the voters never are. And that's what happened in Nevada. But don't think that's the worst of it. I mean, I'll never forget, we did a case in Texas. We sued a Texas county for having corrupted voter rolls. And we were doing depositions in that case. And we asked the election administrator, if you knew the person died, would you remove them from the voter rolls? The answer was no. Okay, what if you went to the viewing? Would you remove the voter from the voter rolls? The answer was no. And we thought, okay, this is nuts. Then the next question, verbatim, in the transcript of the deposition. If you saw the dead body would you remove the voter from the voter rolls? And this election official from a county in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas answered no. So that's what you have in places like the Rio Grande Valley, were election officials who were unwilling to do their job and keep the rolls clean. But sometimes there's easy mistakes in this space. After the 2020 election, some people looked at the voting in Michigan and said, dead people voted. And what made them think that dead people voted was some of them were born in the year of 1900, and therefore they couldn't be alive anymore, or else they'd be the oldest people in the world. Well, we knew at the Public Interest Legal Foundation that a lot of those 1900 votes on the year of birth for the voter were just placeholders. They were bad data. There was dirty hygiene on the voter rolls all across the country. But it led people to conclude that these people must be dead just because their birthday was listed as 1900. We knew that was just a placeholder date of birth. And that's important to understand, that the voter rolls can be complicated to understand, and they don't always reveal easy answers. Consider Judith Presto, however, on the other side of the ledger. Judith Presto registered to vote and voted in the 2020 election. I have visited Judith Presto's grave in a national cemetery just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The problem with Judith Presto voting in the 2020 election was that Judith Presto died in 2013, that she was dead in the 2020 election. As a matter of fact, Judith Presto was dead when she registered to vote, or I should say somebody registered for her. So we know that people who are dead are voting, and vote by mail only makes it worse. We also know that non-citizens are voting. If you take a look at the Public Interest Legal Foundation, has a great report called Stealing the Vote. And what it did is we went and we documented non-citizen voting in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, based on self-confessions, where a person from El Salvador would write a letter saying, please remove me from the rolls. I did not mean to vote. I did not mean to register to vote. I thought I was registering for the student body election. That's an actual excuse in the records we found in the election office in Pittsburgh. And what you will find is a system breakdown. You will find that non-citizens are getting on the rolls by mistake sometimes, but because the system is inviting them on the rolls. Motor voter is inviting them on the rolls inadvertently when they go to get driver's licenses. As a matter of fact, the Public Interest Legal Foundation has been involved in a lawsuit with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the last 3 years because the Commonwealth admitted that they have been registering foreigners to vote for 20 years by accident. By accident is their excuse. And it's somewhere between 10,000 voters and 100,000 voters born in another country, not eligible to vote, getting on the rolls in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and voting. And all we did is ask for the records to let us see how this happened so we can fix it, see where the breakdown occurred, who was responsible. And we have been litigating for 3 years, not for whether or not this actually occurred, because they admit it occurred. A Secretary of State of Pennsylvania resigned because we figured this out. But instead, just look for the records. All we want are the records of how many people were registered who were foreigners to vote. So we're still in that litigation. We do the best we can to publicize this sort of information to the public. So the last thing I'll leave you with is Virginia. Not all is bad news. Last year during the election, while a lot of cases were going badly, we won an important case in Virginia. Virginia tried to allow mail ballots to come in late with no postmarks for 3 days. Well, the problem is that the Virginia law says you can't do that. You have to have a postmark. And so we took Virginia to court. We won. We shut it down. And it was a delightful, bright moment, in other words, very bleak landscape in the 2020 election. Sometimes the good guys win. I'm J. Christian Adams. We're the Public Interest Legal Foundation. We're a 501c3 charity devoted entirely to fighting for election integrity. That's all we do, and we do it 365 a year, and we're doing it to you to protect your vote. Thank you very much for having me and listening to this podcast.